The gunshot split the ballroom before the music could die. Glass shattered. A waiter screamed. Men in tailored suits reached under jackets at the same time, fingers grazing cold metal. The chandelier swayed as bodies dove for cover. Marco DeLuca didn't flinch. He finished his step, twisted, and drove the shooter's wrist down into the marble table. The second shot had punched into the ceiling. Marco's elbow came down. Bone cracked. The gun skidded across the floor. "Clear the room," Marco said, calm as a priest. "Now." His men moved fast. Doors slammed. Curtains dropped. Someone dragged the bleeding shooter away. Across the room, Victor Cade stood frozen, eyes locked on Marco. For a breath, the two most dangerous men in the city stared at each other like they'd just woken from the same nightmare. Between them, Amina Rahman lowered her glass. "Gentlemen," she said softly, "this is embarrassing." Marco turned to her first. He always did. "Are you hurt?" Amina checked her sleeve. No blood. She smiled, small and controlled. "I'm fine." Victor's jaw tightened. "You should leave, both of you. This place is compromised." Marco's eyes flicked back to Victor. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." Amina stepped between them, heels clicking once, twice like punctuation. "Please, not here. Not tonight." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The tension bent around her. Outside, sirens wailed closer. Marco offered his arm. "Come with me." Victor cut in. "My car is safer." Amina didn't hesitate. She took Marco's arm. Victor watched them go, the smile never reaching his eyes. "Run the plates," he told his lieutenant. "I want to know who fired that gun." The lieutenant nodded. "Boss, you think this was about her?" Victor said nothing. He was already imagining Marco's blood on the marble. "By morning," the city whispered. An attempted hit at a charity gala. Two kings in the same room, a woman at the center. Everyone agreed on one thing. It wouldn't end cleanly. Marco poured espresso in his penthouse kitchen. The city spread beneath him like a map he owned. Amina sat at the counter, scrolling through messages, her face unreadable. "They'll spin it," Marco said. "Say it was random." Amina looked up. "Was it?" Marco smiled, without humor. "Nothing ever is." She set the phone down. "Victor called me." Marco's hand paused, mid-pour. "When?" 10 minutes ago. "And?" "He wanted to make sure I was safe." Marco met her gaze. "Did he?" Amina shrugged. "He sounded concerned." Marco slid the cup toward her. "He's playing you." She took a sip. "Or he's worried." "About what?" "About losing." Marco laughed. "He already lost." "Did he?" she asked. Quiet. Marco leaned in. "You chose me." Amina held his stare. "Tonight." "Yes." The word tonight hung between them, sharp as a blade. Victor stood in his office, city fog pressing against the windows. The shooter knelt on the floor, face swollen, hands bound. "Who sent you?" Victor asked. The man spat blood, didn't see his face. Victor nodded. His enforcer stepped forward. "Wait," Victor said. He crouched, eye level. "Let me ask you something first. Were you aiming at me? Or at her?" The man hesitated. Victor smiled. "Thank you." He stood. "Dispose of him." As the door closed, Victor picked up his phone and dialed. "Amina," he said when she answered. "I need to see you." She didn't ask why. "Where?" "Somewhere neutral." She named a cafe by the river. Public, safe, smart. Victor smiled again. They met at noon. Sunlight, tourists, cameras everywhere. Amina arrived alone. "You shouldn't be here without security," Victor said, standing. "I trust you," she replied. He gestured for her to sit. "You shouldn't." She tilted her head. "Then why am I still alive?" Victor studied her. "Because you're valuable." "To whom?" "To this city," he said. "And to Marco." Her lips curved. And to you? He leaned back. You know the answer. A waiter approached. Victor waved him away. A shot was fired last night, Victor said. That doesn't happen without permission. Amina's eyes hardened. Are you accusing Marco? I'm asking if he benefits. And do you? Victor's fingers tapped once on the table. If Marco falls, the city bleeds. Maybe it needs to, she said. He looked at her sharply. My family bled, Amina continued. Years ago. No one cared. Victor said nothing. Marco was there, and she added. Not with a gun, with a signature. Victor exhaled slowly. You're saying this is personal? She met his eyes. Everything is. Silence stretched. Boats drifted past. You're dangerous, Victor said finally. Amina smiled. Only if you underestimate me. By nightfall, Marco's men intercepted a shipment at the docks. Weapons rerouted. Drivers disappeared. Victor got the call during dinner. So it begins, he said. His lieutenant frowned. Marco's signature all over this. Victor cut his steak. No, this feels guided. By who? Victor thought of Amina's calm eyes. Someone who knows where to push. Marco slammed his hand on the desk. He touched my supply lines. His consigliere swallowed. Victor denies it. Marco laughed. Of course he does. Amina watched from the couch. If he didn't do it. Marco turned. You're defending him? I'm questioning assumptions, she said. That's how wars start. Marco softened. I won't let him take you from me. She stood. This isn't about me. It's always about you, Marco said. She stepped closer. Then listen. If you strike first, you look guilty. Let him expose himself. Marco searched her face. You're asking me to wait. I'm asking you to win. He nodded slowly. For you. She smiled, and something dark passed behind her eyes. If you're hooked already, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more cinematic stories, and drop a comment. Tell us who you think fired that first shot. Your support keeps these stories coming. At midnight, Victor's club exploded. Not with fire, with news, screens, lit up with leaked footage, Marco's men at the docks, timestamps, faces, names. Victor stared at the footage, fury burning hot and clean. Call Marco, he said. The phone rang once. Enjoying the show? Marco asked. Victor's voice was ice. You crossed a line. Marco smiled into the dark. You fired. First. I didn't, Victor said. Silence. Then Marco spoke. Slower. Then who did? Victor ended the call. Across the city, Amina stood on a balcony, wind tugging at her hair, phone in her hand. 2 messages waited unread. She deleted them both and smiled at the city she was about to break. Morning came, with blood. The body was found, at dawn, floating near Pier 9, throat cut clean, hands weighted down. By the time the sun cleared the buildings, everyone important already knew the name. Leo Santori, Marco's dock commander. Marco watched the video twice, face empty. On the third viewing, he paused it. Zoom, he said. The tech obeyed. Marco leaned closer. That cut, he murmured. That's Victor's style. His consigliere hesitated. It could be staged. Marco straightened. Everything is a message. He grabbed his jacket. Get the car. Victor stood over a different body in a warehouse office across town. This one lay slumped in a chair, bullet through the eye. Mine, Victor said quietly. He killed one of mine. His lieutenant clenched his fists. That makes 3 since last night. Victor closed his eyes for a moment. Marco wants war. And Amina. Victor opened his eyes. She warned me, wars don't start alone. They both called her within minutes of each other. Amina answered neither. She was already busy. At noon, a meeting was arranged. Neutral ground. An abandoned courthouse scheduled for demolition. No men, no guns inside. Marco arrived first. Victor arrived second. They stood facing each other across a cracked marble floor where judges once decided lesser crimes. You killed Santori, Marco said. You hit my warehouse, Victor replied. Marco laughed. I hit your supply after you took my man. Victor shook his head. You took mine first. A silence. Then Victor narrowed his eyes. Unless we're both being lied to. Marco's jaw tightened. By who? The doors echoed. Amina walked in. Both men turned at once. You're late, Marco said. Traffic, she replied, calmly. Also, you both started this without me. Rude. Victor watched her carefully. People are dying. Yes, Amina said. And you're blaming each other exactly as expected. Marco stepped closer. Are you saying you know something? I'm saying, she replied, that whoever fired the first shot wanted this meeting to happen. Victor folded his arms. And you think that's you? And she smiled. If it were, would I admit it? Marco scoffed. This is pointless. Amina's voice sharpened. Then leave, and by tomorrow, half the city burns. That stopped him. She looked between them. Someone is feeding you both partial truths, selective leaks, carefully timed deaths. Victor spoke slowly. Why come to us? Because if you destroy each other, she said, the real enemy inherits everything. Marco frowned. Who? Amina stepped back. That's the problem. I don't know yet. It was the first lie she'd told out loud. By evening, a truce was announced, temporary, fragile. The city exhaled. Amina watched the news from her living room, feet tucked under her, phone vibrating nonstop. She ignored Marco's calls. She answered Victor's. You believe her? Victor asked. I believe, Marco's voice cut in. He'd been patched through. That she's the only one not lying to us. Amina smiled to herself. An hour later, Marco's casino lost power. Cameras went dark, doors locked. Panic erupted inside. Men with masks moved through the chaos, precise, efficient. By the time power returned, the vault was empty. Victor watched the footage later, incredulous. That wasn't us. His lieutenant swore. Not our men. Victor slammed his fist down. Then who the hell? His phone buzzed. Amina. This is spiraling, she said. I think the truce is already broken. Victor's voice hardened. Marco robbed himself? Or someone wants you to think he did. Silence. Victor exhaled. Come to me. No, she said. Come to me. Marco found out about the casino at the same time. They took everything, his enforcer said. Clean job. Marco laughed bitterly. Victor's sending a message. Amina stepped out of the shadows. Or someone's framing him. Marco spun. How did you get in? You gave me keys, she said gently. He rubbed his face. This is getting out of control. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Then end it. Tonight. His eyes searched hers. You want me to kill him? I want you safe, she replied. And this ends only one way. Marco nodded slowly. If I do this, there's no going back. She touched his hand. There never was. Across town, Victor loaded a gun. His lieutenant hesitated. You're going yourself? Victor smiled, coldly. Marco thinks I hit his vault. That means he's already decided. And Amina? Victor chambered around. She'll understand. The meeting point was a private garage beneath a high-rise. Marco arrived first. Victor arrived second. No smiles this time. You robbed my casino, Marco said. Victor raised his gun. You murdered my man and tried to pin it on me. Marco drew his own weapon. They stood 10 feet apart. Then clapping echoed. Amina stepped into the light. See, she said softly. This is exactly where it always ends. Both men froze. You lied to us, Victor said slowly. I told you enough, she replied. You filled in the rest. Marco's voice trembled. Why? She met his eyes. Because you took everything from my family. She turned to Victor. And you finished the job. Silence thundered. I didn't know, Victor said. You didn't care, she replied. Alarms wailed above them. Sirens closed in. She stepped back toward the exit. Kill each other, or don't. Either way, you're finished. She turned and left. Gunshots followed her footsteps. If you're still watching, like the video, subscribe, and comment. Who do you think will survive this confrontation? The war had finally chosen its victims. The first bullet shattered concrete between them. Marco dove left. Victor rolled right. The garage exploded with noise, metal ringing, alarms screaming like wounded animals. Stop! Victor shouted between shots. She played us, Marco fired back. You think I don't know that now? A pillar chipped as Victor took cover. Then why are you still shooting? Because my men are dead, Marco yelled. Because my empire is bleeding. Victor reloaded, teeth clenched. So is mine. Silence fell, thick and dangerous. Above them, sirens multiplied. Someone had called the police, or someone had wanted them trapped. Marco peered around the pillar. Where did she go? Victor shook his head. Already gone. That hurt more than the gunfire. They moved at the same time, lowering their weapons. This ends tonight, Marco said, one way or another. Victor nodded. Agreed. They backed away from each other, disappeared into separate stairwells, both knowing the war had passed the point of control. Amina rode the elevator up alone. Her reflection in the mirrored walls didn't smile now. It didn't need to. Her phone buzzed. A secure line. It's done, said the voice on the other end. Not yet, Amina replied, but it will be. You're certain they won't unite? She thought of the gunshots. They don't know how anymore. The call ended. The doors opened onto the rooftop. The city stretched beneath her, alive, ignorant, doomed. By dawn, 5 more bodies dropped. 2 belonged to Marco's inner circle, 3 to Victor's. Every death carried a signature meant to implicate the other, and every signature had been forged. Marco slammed a glass against the wall. He's slaughtering us. His consigliere swallowed. Intel says Victor lost men too. Marco froze. How many? Enough that his lieutenants are panicking. Marco paced. Then who? The answer tasted bitter. Her. Victor stared at the map on his table, red pins multiplying. They're using my methods, he said quietly. His lieutenant frowned. You think Marco? No, Victor snapped. Marco's too emotional right now. These hits are surgical. He looked up. She studied us, learned from us. The room fell silent. She's turning our own playbooks against us, Victor continued. And we handed them to her. Amina met with bankers that afternoon. Clean suits, cleaner smiles. Instability creates opportunity, she said, fingers laced calmly. I'm offering you insulation. One man hesitated. You're asking us to shift support. I'm asking you to survive, Amina corrected. By the time she left, 3 empires had quietly changed allegiance. Marco confronted her that night. She was expecting him. You're destroying us, he said, gun heavy in his hand. Amina didn't look afraid. I'm correcting an imbalance. You said you wanted me safe. I wanted you honest, she replied. You never were. He stepped closer. I loved you. She met his eyes. You loved control. Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. Give me one reason not to end this. She stepped into the barrel of the gun. Because if you kill me, Victor wins. And if Victor wins, you lose everything anyway. His hand shook. She lowered the gun herself. You still have a chance. Walk away. Let the city reset. And you? He asked. She smiled faintly. I already have what I need. He searched her face. What's that? Proof, she said. That power was never yours. You were just borrowing it. Marco left without firing. It felt worse than being shot. Victor wasn't as restrained. He tracked her to a private lounge above the river. 2 guards fell before they knew what hit them. He burst inside, gun raised. Amina sat alone, tea steaming. "You cost me everything," Victor said. She looked up. "No, I revealed who you were." "You think you've won," he snarled. She gestured to the empty chair. "Sit." Against his better judgment, he did. "You once told me," Amina said, "that the city respects strength." Victor scoffed. "It fears it." "Exactly," she replied. "And fear is unstable. I'm building something quieter." He leaned forward. "You used us." "Yes. And now, she said, you choose." "Choose what?" She slid a tablet across the table. On it, documents, accounts, names. "Turn state witness," she said calmly. "You disappear. Marco collapses. The blood stops." Victor laughed, sharp and broken. "You want me to betray everyone." "You already have," she said. "You just didn't get paid for it." Silence. Outside, water lapped against concrete. Victor looked at the tablet, then at her. "If I refuse," she sipped her tea, "then you die tonight, and Marco follows tomorrow." He studied her, truly seeing her for the first time. "You're worse than us," he said. She didn't deny it. "I'm necessary." The news broke the next morning. Victor Cade had vanished. Rumors spread like wildfire. Marco watched the report, hollow. Amina's phone buzzed. One word appeared on the screen. "Done." She closed her eyes. Marco met his men in the war room. "We're pulling back," he said. Confusion erupted. "We're losing territory." "We're losing everything if we don't," Marco snapped. "This war is poisoned." A lieutenant hesitated. "By who?" Marco didn't answer. 2 days later, the indictment dropped. Names, photos, evidence. Victor's empire collapsed overnight. Marco's followed, slower, but just as surely. And at the center of every thread sat Amina, untouched, unnamed. If this story has you hooked, now is the perfect time to like, subscribe, and comment. Tell us, do you think Marco will survive what's coming next? Because the end was closer than anyone realized. The first bullet tore into concrete. Marco dove left as Victor fired again, the sound deafening inside the garage. Dust burst from the pillars. Tires screeched somewhere above, alarms still screaming like the city itself was warning them. "You set me up!" Victor shouted. Marco rolled behind a car, fired twice. "You killed my people!" Victor ducked, breath sharp. "I didn't touch your docs." A pause, just long enough for doubt to creep in. Then Marco moved, fast, closing the distance. Victor came up firing. They crashed into each other, guns skidding across the floor. Fists replaced bullets. Marco slammed Victor into a pillar. Victor drove a knee into Marco's ribs. Bone cracked. Pain flared. Neither man stepped back. "You believed her!" Victor snarled. Marco spat blood. "So did you." They grappled, slipping on oil and dust, 2 empires reduced to muscle and rage. Above them, footsteps thundered, police voices. Floodlights began to glow through the ramp. Victor froze. She called them. Marco's eyes widened. Amina had timed it perfectly. They broke apart, breathing hard. "Truce," Victor said through clenched teeth. "Right now, or we both rot." Marco hesitated, then nodded. They ran in opposite directions as doors slammed open and shots rang out behind them. Amina watched the chaos unfold from the back seat of a moving car. Her driver glanced at her in the mirror. "That was clean." "It had to be," she replied. "Take me home." She checked her phone. News alerts were already flooding in. Illegal garage. Gunfight. 2 unidentified suspects escaped. She closed her eyes. Phase 1 was complete. Marco stitched his own wound in a safe house bathroom, teeth clenched, hands steady. His phone rang. "Victor." Marco answered. "She played us," Victor said. Marco tied off the thread. "I know." Silence stretched. "I lost 3 more men tonight," Victor continued. Unrelated hits, professional. Same, Marco said. They both understood. Someone was consolidating power while they bled. Meet me, Victor said. Just us, no guns. Marco laughed softly. You trust me now? No, Victor replied. But I trust her less. They met in a church, empty, candlelit, neutral ground again. Marco sat in a pew. Victor stood near the altar. She orchestrated everything, Marco said. The docks, the vault, the leaks. Victor nodded. And the timing, always when we were weakest. Marco leaned back. She wanted us to turn on each other. Victor's eyes darkened. Revenge. Marco frowned. For what? Victor hesitated. Years ago, a family wiped out during a corporate takeover signed by both our organizations. Marco's chest tightened. Memories surfaced. A name on a document he'd barely read. Raman Holdings, Amina. We destroyed her, Marco said quietly. Yes, Victor replied. And she survived us. Silence. She's still winning, Marco said. Even now. Victor exhaled. Then we end it together. Amina anticipated this. By the time they left the church, warrants were issued, accounts frozen, allies defected. Amina's voice filled boardrooms instead of back alleys now. She's untouchable, Marco said, watching another contact refuse his call. Victor's jaw tightened. No one is untouchable. They tracked her to a public forum, a televised economic summit. Amina sat on stage, calm, elegant, speaking about transparency and rebuilding cities. The audience applauded. Marco watched from the control room monitors. She's rewriting herself. Victor checked his watch. We have one shot. They moved separately, blending with staff, security already compromised. Amina finished her speech. And the future, she said, smiling at the crowd, belongs to those brave enough to claim it. Applause thundered as she stepped backstage and stopped. Marco stood there. So, she said lightly, you finally listened. Victor stepped out behind her. Her smile didn't falter. You should leave, Marco said. Now. Amina tilted her head. Or what? Or we tell the truth, Victor said. She laughed softly. You don't have proof. Marco held up a drive. Your men, your payments, your leaks. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes, then vanished. You won't release it, she said. If you do, the city burns, markets crash, innocents suffer. Victor's voice was cold. You already burned it. Amina stepped closer. I gave it a chance to be reborn. Marco clenched his fists. At the cost of everything. She met his gaze. At the cost of you. Security voices echoed nearby. She smiled again. Do it. Expose me. And become the villains you always were. Marco hesitated. Victor didn't. He pressed send. The summit erupted. Screens flickered. Names, accounts, footage, gasps, shouts, panic. Amina turned slowly, anger blazing now. You think this ends me? Victor replied. No, it ends us all. She stepped back as guards rushed in. Marco grabbed her arm. It's over. She yanked free. For you. She was dragged away, cameras flashing. That night, fires burned across the city. Protests, arrests, raids. Marco watched from a rooftop. City in chaos. Victor stood beside him. We killed the old world. And didn't survive the new one, Marco said. Their phones buzzed at the same time. A message. Unknown number. You did exactly what I wanted. Below it, a photo. Amina, smiling, escorted into a courthouse. No cuffs. Marco's breath caught. She planned this too. Victor closed his eyes. She's still in control. If this twist caught you off guard, like the video, subscribe, and comment. Did Marco and Victor make the right choice? The end was coming. Marco dove left as Victor fired again, the shot grazing his shoulder and ripping into a parked car. Glass exploded outward. Alarms screamed. You set this up, Marco shouted, rolling behind a pillar. Victor reloaded with practiced calm. She set us up. Marco popped out and fired. Victor ducked. The bullet punched a hole where Victor's head had been a second earlier. Then why are your men outside? Marco yelled. They're not, Victor shot back. Yours are. Above them, footsteps thundered, shouts echoed, tires screeched. Both men paused, breathing hard. Listen, Victor said, lowering his gun just an inch. If we kill each other, she wins. Marco laughed, sharp and bitter. She already won. Gunfire erupted from the upper level. Bullets rained down, chewing through steel and concrete. Victor cursed. That's not my people. Marco swore. Not mine either. They moved at the same time, backs pressed together, firing upward at the silhouettes advancing from the ramps. These men moved differently, too clean, too disciplined. Private contractors, Victor muttered. Expensive, Marco reloaded. She hired them. Victor glanced at him. Or someone using her name. They fought their way to an exit, breath burning, ears ringing. Smoke filled the garage. Outside, chaos waited. Police lights painted the street red and blue. News vans blocked intersections. Someone had tipped them off. Marco grabbed Victor's arm. This way! They disappeared down an alley, just as officers stormed the garage. Amina watched the live footage from a quiet apartment miles away. The news anchor's voice trembled with excitement. An apparent shootout between rival crime figures. Amina muted the TV. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Yes. You're late, a man said. I like to be thorough, she replied. You promised bodies. You're getting empires, Amina said. Be patient. The line went dead. She set the phone down and allowed herself a slow breath. Marco and Victor took shelter in an abandoned tailor shop, lights off, guns on the table between them. Marco wrapped his bleeding shoulder. That footage goes public. We're both done. Victor nodded. Assets frozen. Warrants signed. Friends gone. Marco looked up. You really didn't know about her family? Victor hesitated. I knew the company. I didn't know the daughter survived. Marco laughed, softly. I signed that order. I didn't read the names. Silence stretched. So what now? Marco asked. Victor leaned back. Now we figure out how deep this goes. Marco's phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. From Amina. You should be lying low. Marco stared at it. She knows where we are. Victor's phone buzzed too. From Amina. You're not safe together. Marco met Victor's eyes. She wants us apart. Victor nodded. Which means we stay together. By morning, the city was under siege. Banks froze accounts linked to both syndicates. Safe houses were raided. Mid-level captains vanished overnight. Marco's lieutenant called from a burner. Boss, someone's flipping our people, offering immunity, names. Victor got a similar call. This is coordinated, Victor said. Government doesn't move this fast. Marco paced. So, who's pulling the strings? Victor thought of the voice on the phone. Amina had answered. Someone bigger, someone patient. Amina arrived at a private boardroom overlooking the city. Men in suits waited, faces hidden behind polite smiles. One of them spoke. You said they'd destroy each other. They still might, Amina replied. But they adapted. That wasn't part of the plan. Amina leaned forward. Plans evolve. Another man frowned. We don't like variables. She smiled. Then you shouldn't have hired me. Silence. The first man sighed. Finish it. She stood. I will. Marco and Victor moved again, changing locations every hour. Still, trouble followed. At a safe house, a sniper's bullet missed Marco's head by inches. At a second location, a car bomb detonated seconds after they exited. They're hunting us, Marco said. Victor loaded magazines. No, they're hurting us. Toward what? Victor answered grimly. Toward her. They found her, where it all began. The old courthouse. She stood alone in the center, hands visible. You're persistent, she said as they entered. Marco raised his gun. You sold us out. She shook her head. I sold you short. Victor scanned the room. Where are they? Watching, she said. Always watching. Marco stepped closer. You said this was revenge. It was, Amina replied. At first. Victor narrowed his eyes. And now? Now it's succession. Marco laughed. You think they'll let you rule? They already have, she said calmly. I gave them chaos. They gave me legitimacy. She gestured. Screens flickered on around the room. News footage showed her face. Amina Rahman, appointed emergency administrator for city redevelopment. Marco's stomach dropped. You're untouchable. For now, she said. Victor raised his gun. Step aside. She met his gaze. Kill me, and they erase everything you ever were. Marco's finger trembled on the trigger. You loved us, he said. She looked at him sadly. I used you. The doors boomed open. Armed agents flooded in. Drop your weapons. Marco and Victor looked at each other. Marco smiled. Together. Victor nodded. Together. They fired. If this twist caught you off guard, subscribe and comment right now. Do you think Amina planned this from the very beginning? The city woke up to fear wearing a familiar face. 3 cars burned on the expressway before sunrise. A nightclub bled money, and men, after masked shooters, walked in, smiling. By noon, every crew knew the truce was dead. Marco sat in the back of his armored SUV, watching smoke rise in the distance. She played us, his consigliere said quietly. Marco didn't answer. Boss, the man continued, this war is costing us everything. Marco finally spoke. No, it's costing Victor everything too. Then why does it feel like we're losing? Marco closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't have an answer. Victor stood in a dim apartment overlooking the river. He hadn't slept. His phone buzzed nonstop. Reports of lost territory, flipped men, frozen accounts. She anticipated every move, Victor said to the empty room. His lieutenant hesitated at the door. We traced the leaked footage. The servers don't belong to Marco. Victor's head snapped up. Whose are they? The lieutenant swallowed. Shell companies. All roads lead to Amina. The name hit harder than any bullet. She was never choosing between us, Victor whispered. She was replacing us. Amina sat in a glass office downtown, sunlight flooding the room. Lawyers argued softly around her. Screens showed falling stock prices, emergency injunctions, asset seizures. Move the funds now, she said calmly. Before the warrants hit. One of the lawyers frowned. If they trace this back. They won't, Amina replied. Because by tonight, they'll be too busy killing each other. She stood, adjusting her jacket. And if you're enjoying this story so far, she added with a faint smile toward the unseen audience, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. The ending is closer than you think. Marco's convoy was ambushed at dusk. Explosions rocked the street. Gunfire chewed through concrete. Marco was dragged from the wreckage by 2 bleeding men, shoved into a side alley. Victor! Marco snarled. No! One of his men gasped. These shooters, they're not his. Marco stared at the burning SUV. Too precise. Too clean. She wants us desperate, he muttered. Victor watched the news footage of the ambush. Call Marco, he said. The call connected. This wasn't me, Victor said immediately. Marco laughed, harsh. That's funny, I was about to say the same. A beat. We need to talk, Victor said. Marco hesitated. About what? About killing the wrong enemy. They met again. Different place. Same tension. Amina wasn't there this time. Marco paced. She's draining our accounts. Victor nodded. And handing evidence to the authorities. Marco scoffed. She wouldn't dare. She already has, Victor replied. My lawyer disappeared this morning. Marco stopped pacing. Why didn't we see this? Victor's voice was low. Because she made us see only each other. Silence. Marco exhaled. If we move together, she'll vanish, Victor finished. Marco nodded. Then we cut her off. Tonight. They were too late. Amina stood on a rooftop helipad, wind whipping her hair as a private helicopter warmed up behind her. Her phone rang. Marco, she answered. You won, he said flatly. I know, she replied. Why not kill us yourself? She smiled. I wanted you to understand first. Victor's voice cut in on speaker. Where are you going? Somewhere legitimate, Amina said. Somewhere clean. Marco laughed bitterly. You think the city will accept you? They already have, she replied. Check the news. They did. Breaking headlines. Massive criminal takedown. 2 rival syndicates exposed. Anonymous whistleblower. Victor closed his eyes. You destroyed us, he said. Amina's voice softened. No, I let you destroy yourselves. She ended the call and stepped into the helicopter. Sirens flooded the streets below. Police hit Marco's properties first, then Victor's. Marco ran through a service corridor as alarms blared, blood dripping down his sleeve. He burst into a room and froze. Victor stood there, gun lowered. They stared at each other, surrounded by flashing lights and distant shouts. She played us, Marco said. Victor nodded. She played the long game. Marco laughed weakly. Guess we finally agree on something. Footsteps thundered closer. Victor raised his gun, not at Marco, but at the door. You want to go down fighting? Marco shook his head. I'm tired. For the first time, Victor saw honesty in him. They dropped their weapons as police flooded in. Days later, the city was quieter. Too quiet. Amina watched from a penthouse balcony in another country, wine in hand, news playing behind her. 2 former crime bosses arrested, assets seized, criminal empires dismantled. A reporter spoke. Authorities credit an anonymous insider whose actions saved the city from further bloodshed. Amina muted the TV. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Was it worth it? She typed back. Every scar. If you've made it this far, comment your thoughts, like the video, and subscribe. Because the final twist comes next. She stepped back from the balcony, city lights reflecting in her eyes. The war was over. Power had simply changed hands. They echoed, sharp and angry, tearing into concrete pillars as Marco and Victor dove in opposite directions. Tires screeched above. The sirens Amina had promised grew louder, closer, more real. Marco rolled behind a column, breathing hard. You brought cops, he shouted. Victor fired back, chipping stone. She did. They paused, listening. Boots thundered on the ramps above. Marco cursed. This was a setup. Victor laughed once, bitter. Now you're learning. They locked eyes across the smoke-filled garage, weapons still raised. Truce, Victor said. Marco hesitated half a second, then nodded. Temporary. They moved fast, backs to each other, firing upward as police poured in. Chaos swallowed the garage. By the time the smoke cleared, both men were gone, and Amina was already 3 blocks away. The city cracked open after that. Without warning, smaller crews started hitting major operations. Not just Marco's, not just Victor's, everyone. Bank accounts frozen overnight, shell companies exposed, politicians suddenly cooperative with prosecutors they'd ignored for years. Victor watched the news in silence. They're using our files, his lieutenant said. Internal ones. Victor's voice was low. Someone had access. The room went still. Amina, the lieutenant whispered. Victor closed his eyes. Marco came to the same realization an hour later. She knew our structures, his consigliere said. Old roots, old names. Marco stared out the window. She asked questions. I answered. She asked me too, Victor said over speakerphone. Marco stiffened. You're calling to confess. I'm calling to propose survival. Silence stretched. Meet, Victor continued, one last time. Marco exhaled. If this is another trap. It won't be, Victor said. She doesn't need us dead anymore. Amina watched both men from different cameras, different buildings, different moods. She muted the feeds and leaned back. The city was doing exactly what she'd planned, turning on its monsters. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You made your point, Marco said. She smiled. Did I? You wanted us weak, Victor added. You got it. She swiveled her chair toward the window. I wanted you exposed. You're burning everything, Marco snapped. Even yourself. Especially myself, she replied. That's the cost of truth. Victor's voice softened. This ends badly for you. She nodded, though they couldn't see it. It always was going to. They met on the roof of a half-finished tower overlooking the river, no guns visible, too tired for posturing. Amina arrived last. You look calm, Marco said. I am, she replied. Victor studied her face. What happens now? She stepped to the edge, city lights shimmering below. Now you choose. Choose what? Marco demanded. Which of you survives, she said, and whether the city finally gets peace. Victor laughed darkly. You want us to kill each other again? No, she said. I want one of you to testify. The word hung heavy. Marco's eyes widened. You're insane. Maybe, she said, but the evidence is already delivered. Names, dates, transfers. Victor clenched his jaw. And if we don't? She turned. Then you both fall. Marco stared at her. You planned this from the start. Yes. You let us believe. I let you reveal yourselves. She cut in. Victor spoke quietly. Why not just kill us? Because martyrs inspire loyalty, she replied. Witnesses destroy it. Silence. Wind whipped across the rooftop. Marco laughed suddenly. You know what's funny? I almost loved you. She met his gaze. That's why this worked. Victor stepped back. If one of us talks, the other dies. Amina nodded. That's usually how it goes. Marco looked at Victor. You first? Victor shook his head. You have more enemies. Marco smiled, thinly. Then you should be afraid. They left separately. Amina stayed. Her phone buzzed nonstop now. News alerts, arrests, raids, resignations. She finally answered one call. Yes, she said. I understand. She ended the call and looked out at the city. Almost done, she whispered. That night, Marco's convoy was ambushed. 3 cars, automatic fire, no survivors. The news hit before dawn. Victor watched the report in silence. His lieutenant swallowed. Was that you? Victor shook his head slowly. No. He understood then. Amina didn't need him to choose anymore. By noon, Victor was indicted. His lawyers quit. His accounts vanished. His allies fled. He sat alone in his office as agents approached. His phone buzzed one last time. Amina, I'm sorry it ended this way. He typed back, no, you're not. She didn't reply. If this story has you locked in, like, subscribe and comment right now. The final act changes everything. The echo of gunfire had barely faded when the city seemed to hold its breath. Marco and Victor, both bleeding but alive, backed into opposite corners of the garage, their chests heaving. Each man knew one shot could end it all. Each man knew Amina had orchestrated this moment. Marco wiped the blood from his lip, shaking his head. She's playing us. Both. Victor smirked, though the smirk didn't reach his eyes. She always plays the best hands. Silence hung, broken only by the sirens growing louder above. You think she wants one of us dead? Marco asked. Victor's laugh was low, almost a growl. She wants both of us. Broken. Marco's finger twitched near the trigger. I don't care. Not after tonight. Careful, Victor warned. One slip and it's over. The tension was a living thing, stretching tight between them. Marco's eyes flicked to the stairwell. Amina's shadow had vanished into the exit, her figure swallowed by the night. We should chase her, Marco muttered. Victor shook his head. No, she's not here for us anymore. She's already won. Then the garage lights flickered, a hum of electricity, faint but rising. Both men stiffened. Back up? Marco asked. Victor's lips curved into a small smile. Not theirs. The floor vibrated, a deep, mechanical sound, and then a wall of reinforced glass shattered, spraying shards across the concrete. Figures emerged, massed, moving with precision, unhesitating. Bullets sprayed. Marco and Victor fired instinctively, taking down one, then two, but the others kept advancing. Amina's plan had escalated beyond just manipulation. She had trained forces, loyal only to her, attacking her own targets, forcing the two Mafia kings to act or die. Regroup, Marco shouted. His men streamed in from hidden exits, guns blazing, smoke filling the room. Victor ducked behind a steel column. No matter what we do, she stays 3 moves ahead. Amina's voice crackled over the emergency PA system, clear and cold. Gentlemen, gentlemen, you're both so predictable. You chase ego, you chase vengeance, and I chase results. Marco lowered his gun for a second, startled. She's everywhere. She is the storm, Victor muttered, firing into the advancing attackers. The fight raged for minutes that felt like hours. Men fell, blood soaked the floor, smoke stung the eyes, alarms blared. Yet Marco and Victor, despite their rivalry, realized the unspoken truth. Survival meant temporary alliance. Cover me, Marco yelled. I'm taking the left corridor. Victor nodded. I'll hold the center. Don't die before I do. Together, moving with grudging coordination, they fought through the attackers. Each move was precise, calculated. Every bullet fired was survival, not revenge. And above it all, Amina watched, orchestrating chaos like a conductor. Finally, only Marco and Victor remained standing, battered, bruised, their suits shredded, guns smoking. The masked attackers had fallen or fled, but the garage was silent now, save for the echo of heavy breathing. Marco's chest heaved. We survived. Victor leaned against a wall, checking himself. Barely. Amina's voice came again, from somewhere unseen. Congratulations, gentlemen. You have proven resilient. But resilience is only useful when the game ends. Marco lowered his weapon. Game. You've been playing a game? Since the beginning, she said. Every shot, every lie, every betrayal. It led here. Victor clenched his jaw. And what do you want now? Now. Amina's laughter echoed, soft and dangerous. Now, you both understand. Neither of you is untouchable. Neither of you is in control. And she paused, letting the weight of her words settle. I am the queen of a city, built on your chaos. Marco and Victor exchanged a glance, anger and awe, mingling. They had survived each other, and they had survived the attacks. But had they survived her? Amina stepped out of the shadows finally, her eyes gleaming with triumph. She was unharmed, elegant and untouchable. The two kings, exhausted, beaten, and humbled, watched her like predators, realizing they had been outsmarted by a single human. You should have trusted me from the beginning, she said softly. Instead, you let pride and rage cloud your judgment, and look where that got you. Marco spoke first, voice low but steady. You broke us, and rebuilt the pieces exactly how I wanted, Amina replied. You fought wars that were never yours to fight. You killed and almost destroyed each other. And all of it for nothing but my design. Victor's voice was rough, tinged with exhaustion. You're insane. Amina smiled, almost kindly. Perhaps. Or perhaps I am the only sane one in this city. Gentlemen, take this lesson. The deadliest weapon is not fire, not blood, not steel. It is intelligence, patience, and the ability to see the whole board. She turned to leave, her figure slipping into the night as silently as she had arrived. Both Mafia kings watched powerless as the woman who had caused their downfall walked away victorious. Wait, Marco called after her. This isn't over. Amina's laughter echoed one last time before vanishing. Victor muttered under his breath, No, it never will be. Marco leaned against the wall, exhaustion and rage battling inside him. We need to rebuild, he said. Victor nodded, grim. We do. But this time, we watch her moves, every single one. Outside, the city seemed calm, unaware of how close it had come to chaos. But inside, 2 kings had been humbled, a queen had risen, and the game had shifted. Forever. If you're still captivated, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and comment. Tell us who you think truly controls the city now. The night settled over the skyline, dark and quiet, but the war, the rivalry, and the tension had only deepened, ready to erupt again at Amina's command. The city woke the next morning, pretending nothing had changed. Traffic moved, coffee shops opened, screens flashed the same headlines, carefully edited, carefully vague, an unidentified gang conflict, a suspected criminal infighting. No names, no faces, but everyone who mattered felt it. Marco sat alone in his penthouse, jacket off, shirt stained, knuckles bruised, the silence pressed harder than gunfire. His phone buzzed endlessly. Lieutenants asking for orders, allies demanding reassurance, enemies testing boundaries. He ignored them all. Across town, Victor stared at the river from his office window, bandage wrapped tight around his arm. His empire still stood, but cracks ran through every foundation. Men whispered, loyalty wavered, fear had replaced respect. For the first time in decades, both men asked the same question: how did we lose control? Amina walked through a government building with a calm, measured stride. No gods, no panic, just confidence. She greeted officials by name, exchanged quiet smiles, shook hands that once would never have touched hers. A polished plaque on the wall reflected her face as she passed. She remembered her father bleeding on a kitchen floor, her mother begging men who never listened. She remembered signatures on documents that erased lives without bullets, Marco's signature, Victor's approval. Now, every step echoed with repayment. Marco finally answered his phone. Yes, he said, get everyone in the room. Minutes later, his inner circle gathered, hard men, nervous eyes. Here's how this goes, Marco said. We stop chasing ghosts, we lock down territory, no moves without my word. One man hesitated. And Victor? Marco's jaw tightened. He breathes, because I allow it. The room nodded, but doubt lingered. After they left, Marco poured a drink and stared at the city. Amina's words replayed in his head. You filled in the rest? He slammed the glass down, shattering it. Never again. Victor held his own meeting. We tighten operations, he said. No aggression, no retaliation. A lieutenant frowned. That makes us look weak. Victor's eyes flashed. Weak is being manipulated and not learning from it. The room went quiet. And Amina? Someone asked. Victor paused. She's untouchable. That truth tasted bitter. Days passed. Then weeks. No open war, no explosions, just tension, coiled tight, like a loaded gun left on a table. Then the arrests began. Not soldiers, not street men, accountants, lawyers, middlemen, quiet indictments, silent raids. Marco watched the news in disbelief as one of his oldest financial partners was led away in cuffs. Victor slammed his desk when a trusted fixer vanished overnight. Neither name appeared in connection with the other. Only one name appeared everywhere. Amina Rahman, advisor, consultant, philanthropist, the woman cleaning the city. Marco confronted her at last. She was seated in a quiet private lounge, reviewing documents. Calm, elegant. "You're dismantling us," Marco said. She didn't look up. "I'm dismantling corruption." "You're taking my empire piece by piece." She met his gaze. "You took my family piece by piece." Marco's voice dropped. "If I fall, others rise." She nodded. "I've planned for that." "You think you're immune?" She smiled. "No, I think I'm necessary." Silence stretched. "What do you want?" Marco asked finally. Amina closed the folder. "Balance." He laughed bitterly. "You burned the city for balance." "I burned poison," she replied. "The city survived." Marco stood. "This ends when one of us is dead." Amina's eyes were steady. "No, this ends when you're irrelevant." Victor's meeting came days later. "You played us," he said flatly. "I warned you," Amina replied. "You didn't listen. You ruined decades of work. I corrected decades of harm." Victor studied her. "What happens when someone does to you what you did to us?" She leaned closer. "Then I'll deserve it?" Victor smiled slowly. "You really believe that?" "I live by it." He stood. "Then I suppose we wait." Amina nodded. "That's all anyone can do now." The final blow came quietly. Marco's accounts froze overnight. No warning, no negotiation. Victor lost a major port to a redevelopment project backed by international investors. Both men understood the message. The war was over. Not because one man won, because one woman ended it. Months later, the city looked cleaner, safer on the surface. Amina stood on a rooftop at dusk, watching lights flicker on across the skyline. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. "You won," Marco's voice said. "For now," she replied. Victor's voice joined the call. "Enjoy it." Amina smiled faintly. "I will." She ended the call and slipped the phone into her pocket. Below her, the city breathed, unaware of how close it had come to burning itself alive. She turned away, heels clicking softly, already planning the next move. If you stayed till the end, like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories and comment. Was Amina a hero, a villain, or something far more dangerous? Because in a world ruled by violence, the most terrifying power was never the gun. It was the mind that decided when the gun would fire.